2/3, that sort of thing. And I'm just listening to the fascinating conversation downstairs, all about bull semen. We might just sit and listen to a discussion about beef and dairy cattle. Shall we do that rather than listening to Moby Dick?
Downhill towards it, like long things. And I was like, God, Lane Grace didn't need it. He was like, well, we thought about that.
I suppose it best.
You can see that they just split it.
With best do what I'm here for.
Like almost like a T.
Fascinating conversation, though.
From the farm, and it comes out like that.
Right, so we'll get through a few chapters today, I think, because they're quite short. Yeah, all right. But we do this every week, every Thursday afternoon, in the Cloud House Cafe, which is a lovely little cafe and art gallery here in Stow in South Scotland, and we read Moby Dick, or whatever book we're reading, but we've been reading this for quite a long time. So it's page 300. We're reading this for a year, something like that. Anyway, The Honour and Glory of Wailing. There are some enterprises in which a careful disorderliness is the true method. The more I dive into this matter of whaling and push my researches up to the very springhead of it, so much more I am impressed with its great honourableness and antiquity, and especially when I find so many great demigods and heroes, prophets and of all sorts, who one way or another have shed distinction upon it. I am transported, with the reflection that I myself bring, though but subordinately, to so emblazoned a fraternity. The gallant Perseus, son of Jupiter, was the first whaleman, and to the eternal honour of our calling be it said that the first whale attacked by our brotherhood was not killed with any sordid intent. Those were the knightly days of our profession, when we only bore arms to succour the distressed, and not to fill men's lamp feeders. Everyone knows the fine story of Perseus and Andromeda, how the lovely Andromeda, the daughter of a king, was tied to a rock on the sea-coast. And as Leviathan was in the very act of carrying her off, Perseus, the prince of whalemen, intrepidly advancing, harpooned the monster and delivered and married the maid. It was an admirable artistic exploit, rarely achieved by the best harpooners of the present day, insomuch as this Leviathan was slain at the very first dart. And let no man doubt this archite story. Archite? What archite means? This archite story. For in the ancient Joppa, now Jaffa, on the Syrian coast, in one of the pagan temples, there stood for many ages the vast skeleton of a whale, which the city's legends and all the inhabitants asserted to be the identical bones of the monster that Perseus slew. When the Romans took Joppa, the same skeleton was carried to Italy in triumph. What seems most singular and suggestively important in this story is this: it was from Joppa that Jonah set sail. A lot of biblical references. A lot of biblical references in this book. Akin to the adventure of Perseus and Andromeda, indeed by some supposed to be indirectly derived from it. Hello, Happy. Is that famous story of St. George and the dragon, which dragon I maintain to have been a whale, for in many old chronicles whales and dragons are strangely jumbled together and often stand for each other. Thou art as a lion in the waters and a dragon of the sea, said Ezekiel, hereby plainly meaning a whale. In truth, some versions of the Bible that use the word itself. Besides, it would much subtract from the glory of the exploit had St. George but encountered a crawling reptile of the land instead of doing battle with the great monster of the deep. Any man may kill a snake, but only Perseus, a St. George, a coffin, have the heart in them to march boldly up to a whale. Hello, Siphon Snob. I don't have any grey here. Yeah, it has been a while, isn't it? I'm having a cappuccino today, as I usually do up here. Yeah, I didn't have any grey hair either when I started reading this. Let not the modern paintings of the scene mislead us, for though the creature encountered by that valiant whaleman is old, of old is vaguely represented of a griffin-like shape, and though the battle is depicted on land and the saint on horseback, yet considering the great ignorance of those times when the true form of the whale was unknown to artists, and considering that, as in Perseus's case, St. George's whale might have crawled up out of the sea on the beach, and considering that the animal ridden by St. George might have been only a large seal or a sea horse. Bearing all this in mind, it will not appear altogether incompatible with the sacred legend and the ancientest drafts of the scene to hold this so-called dragon no other than the great Leviathan himself. In fact, placed before the strict and piercing truth, this whole story will fare like that fish, flesh, and foul idol of the Philistines, dragon by name, who being planted before the ark of Israel, his horse's head and both the palms of his hands fell from him, and only the stump or fishy part of him remained. Thus, then, one of our own noble stamp, even a whaleman, is the tutelary guardian of England, and by good rights we harpooners of Nantucket should be enrolled in the most noble order of St. George. And therefore, let not the knights of that honourable company, none of whom I venture to say have ever had to do with a whale like their great patron, let them never eye a Nantucketer with disdain, since even in our woollen frocks and tarred trousers we are much better entitled to St. George's decoration than they. Whether to admit Hercules among us or not, concerning this I long remained dubious, for though, according to the Greek mythologies, that antique Crockett and Kit Carson, that brawny doer of rejoicing good deeds, was swallowed down and thrown up by a whale, still, whether that strictly makes a whaleman of him, that might be mooted. It nowhere appears that he ever actually harpooned his fish. Useless indeed from the inside. Nevertheless, he may be deemed a sort of involuntary whaleman. At any rate, the whale caught him, if he did not the whale. I claim him for one of our clan. But, by the best contradictory authorities, this Grecian story of Hercules and the whale is considered to be derived from the still more ancient Hebrew story of Jonah and the whale, and vice versa. Certainly they are very similar. If I claim the demigod, then why not the prophet? Nor do heroes, saints, and demigods and prophets alone comprise the whole roll of our order. Our Grand Master is still to be named. For like royal kings of old times, we find the headwaters of our fraternity in nothing short of the great gods themselves. That wondrous oriental story is now to be rehearsed from the Shastra, which gives us the dread Vishnu, one of the three persons in the Godhead of the Hindus. Give us this divine Vishnu himself for our Lord. Vishnu, who, by the first of his 10 earthly incarnations, has forever set apart and sanctified the whale. When Brahma, or the god of gods, saith this Shastra, resolved to recreate the whole world after one of its periodical dissolutions, he gave birth to Vishnu to preside over the work. But the Vedas, or magical or mystical books, whose perusal would seem to have been indispensable to Vishnu before beginning the creation, and which therefore must have contained something in the shape of practical hints to the young architects, these Vedas were laying in the bottom of the drawers of the waters. So Vishnu became incarnate with a whale, and sending down in him to the uttermost depths, rescued the sacred volumes. Was not this Vishnu a whaleman then? Even as a man who rides a horse is called a horseman. Perseus, St. George, Hercules, Jonah, and Vishnu. There's a member roll for you. What club but the whaleman's can head off like that? I like that. I'm pleased to see that Melville is giving, or Ishmael perhaps, is giving great prominence to other religions, not just the biblical references, but there's one to Sikhism. And Vishnu. Vishnu, by the way, is spelled here with a double O, and Hindu, I should say, not Sikh. Yeah, interesting. More coffee. Next chapter. Yeah, 2 o'clock. Next chapter. Chapter 83, Jonah historically regarded. Reference was made to the historical story of Jonah and the whale in the preceding chapter. Oh, Emily. The cartoon Moby Dick is too vicious, you think? Am I too gentle? Reference was made to the historical story of Jonah and the whale in the preceding chapter. Now, some Nantucketers rather distrust this historical story of Jonah and the whale, but then there were some sceptical Greeks and Romans who, standing out from the orthodox pagans of their times, equally doubted the story of Hercules and the whale, and Arion and the dolphin. And yet, their doubting those traditions did not make those traditions one whit less facts, for all that. One old Sag Harbor whaleman's chief reason for questioning the Hebrew story was this. He had one of those quaint old-fashioned Bibles embellished with curious unscientific plates, one of which represented Jonah's whale with 2 spouts in his head, a peculiarity only true with respect to a species of the Leviathan, the right whale and the varieties of that order, concerning which the fishermen have this saying, "A penny roll would choke him. His swallow is so very small." But to this, Bishop Jebb's anticipative answer is ready. It is not necessary, hints the bishop, that we consider Jonah as tombed in the whale's belly, but as temporarily lodged in some part of his mouth. And this seems reasonable enough in the good bishop. For truly the right whale's mouth would accommodate a couple of whist tables and comfortably seat all the players. Strange thing to compare to. Possibly, too, Jonah might have ensconced himself in a hollow tooth, but on second thoughts, this right whale is toothless. Another reason which Sag Harbor, he went by that name, I said too cheerful. I'll try to darken it up a little bit, shall I? Another reason which Sag Harbor, he went by this name, urged for the want of fish in this matter of the prophet was something obscurely in reference to his incarnated body and the whale's gastric juices. But this objection likewise falls to the ground because a German exegetist, what was it? Exegetist. Exegetist. Supposes that Jonah must have taken refuge in the floating body of a dead whale, even as the French soldiers in the Russian campaign turned their dead horses into tents and crawled into them. Besides, it has been divined by other continental commentators that when Jonah was thrown overboard from the Joppa ship, he straightway effected his escape to another vessel nearby, some vessel with a whale for a figurehead, and I would add possibly called the Whale, as some craft are nowadays christened shark, gull and eagle. Nor have I been wanting learned exegetists who have opened that the whale mentioned in the book of Jonah merely meant a life preserver, an inflated bag of wind, which the endangered prophet swam to, and so was saved from a watery doom. Poor Sag Harbor, therefore, seems worsted all round. But he had still another reason for his want of faith. It was this. If I remember right, Jonah was swallowed by the whale in the Mediterranean Sea, and after 3 days he was vomited up somewhere within 3 days' journey of Nineveh, a city on the Tigris. Very much more than 3 days' journey across from the nearest point of the Mediterranean coast. How is that? But there was no other way for the whale to land the prophet within that short distance of Nineveh. Yes, he might have carried him round by the way of the Cape of Good Hope, but not to speak of the passage through the whole length of the Mediterranean, and another passage up the Persian Gulf and Red Sea. Such a supposition would involve the complete circumnavigation of all Africa in these days, not to speak of the Tigris waters near the site of Nineveh being too shallow for any whale to swim in. Besides, this idea of Jonah's weathering the Cape of Good Hope at so early a day would wrest the honour of the discovery of that great headland from Bartholomew Diaz, his reputed discoverer, and so make modern history a liar. But all these foolish arguments of old Sag Harbor only evinced his foolish pride of reason, a thing still more reprehensible in him, seeing that he had but little learning except what he had picked up from the sun and the sea. I say it only shows his foolish, impious pride and abominable devilish rebellion against the reverend clergy. For by a Portuguese Catholic priest, this very idea of Jonah's going to Nineveh via the Cape of Good Hope was advanced as a signal magnification of the great miracle. And so it was. Besides, to this day, the highly enlightened Turks devoutly believe in the historical story of Jonah. And some 3 centuries ago, an English traveller in old Harris's Voyages speaks of a Turkish mosque being in honour of Jonah, in which mosque was a miraculous lamp that burned without any oil. End of chapter. Hello, Hannah. A live book club discussion. You're reading the book right now, right? So, hang on, this is another short chapter. We'll get through that as well. So, right, so what happens is, every Thursday afternoon, we read Moby Dick, and we read that live, so to speak. We read that in full, because it's out of copyright. The other book that we're reading, The Midnight Library, that's only done once a month, the last Monday of each month. So that's 10 p.m. on my time on the final Monday of every month. And we don't read that in full because it's in copyright, so I can't read the whole thing. 10 p.m. my time. I think it's the 25th is the last Monday of October. Where is Bueller? Bueller, yeah. Okay, I'll try to put more. 25th October, last Monday, yes. So 10 p.m. final Monday of each month, and that's when we decide on the next book as well. So last month it was Inside This Place, Not Of It. This month, September into October, up to the last Monday in October, it's The Midnight Library. On my book, yes. Good. I like a good book club. And I'm enjoying Midnight Library as well. About Novak. Nipa qua. Neat. Okay, neat. If any of them want to join in, let them know about my book club. If they wish to read it as well, that'd be fine. Happy to have new book club members. Right, chapter 84, pitch poling. To make them run easily and swiftly, the axles of carriages are anointed, for so much the same purpose. Some whalers perform an analogous operation upon their boat. They grease the bottom. Have you greased the bottom? Nor is it to be doubted that such a procedure can do no harm. It may possibly be of no contemptible advantage, considering that oil and water are hostile, that oil is a sliding thing, and that object in view is to make the boat slide bravely. Kiekeig believed strongly in anointing his boat, and one morning, not long after the German ship Jungfrau disappeared, took more than the customary pains in that occupation, crawling under its bottom where it hung over the side and rubbing in the unctuous as though diligently seeking to ensure a crop of hair from the craft's bald keel. He seemed to be working in obedience to some peculiar presentiment. Nor did it remain unwarranted by the event. Yeah, sure. Towards noon, whales were raised, but so soon as the ship sailed down to them, they turned and fled with swift precipitancy. It's a good word, precipitancy. A disordered flight, as of Cleopatra's barges from Actium. Nevertheless, the boats pursued, and Stubbs was foremost. By great exertion, Tashtego was at last succeeding in planting one iron, but the stricken whale, without at all sounding, still continued his horizontal flight with added fleetness. Such intermittent strainings upon the planted iron must sooner or later inevitably extract it. It became imperative to lance the flying whale, or be content to lose him. But to haul the boat up to his flank was impossible. He swam so fast and furious. What then remained? Of all the wondrous devices and dexterities, the sleight of hand and countless subtleties to which the veteran whaleman is so often forced, none exceed that fine manoeuvre with the lance called pitch poling. Small sword or broadsword in all its exercises boasts nothing like it. It is only indispensable with an inveterate running whale. Its grand fact and feature is the wonderful distance to which the long lance is accurately darted from a violent rocking, jerking boat under extreme headway. Steel and wood excluded, the entire spear is some 10 or 12 feet in length. The staff is much slighter than that of the harpoon, and also of a lighter material, pine. It is furnished with a small rope called a warp, called a warp of considerable length, by which it can be hauled back to the hand after darting. But before going further, it is important to mention here that though the harpoon may be pitch-poled in the same way with the lance, yet it is seldom done, and when done, it is still less frequently successful on account of the greater weight and inferior length of the harpoon as compared with the lance, which in effect became serious drawbacks. As a general thing, therefore, you must first get fast to a whale before any pitch-poling comes into play. Look now at Stubb, a man who, from his humorous, deliberate coolness and equanimity in this direst of emergencies, was specially qualified to excel in pitch-poling. Look at him as he stands upright in the tossed bow of the flying boat, wrapped in fleecy foam. The towering whale is 40 feet ahead. Handling the long lance lightly, glancing twice or thrice along its length to see if it be exactly straight, Stubb whistlingly gathers up the coil of the warp in one hand, so as to secure its free end in his grasp, leaving the rest unobstructed. Then, holding the lance full before his waistband's middle, he levels it at the whale, when, covering him with it, he steadily depresses the butt end in his hand, thereby elevating the point which the weapon stands fairly balanced upon his palm, 15 feet in the air. He reminds you somewhat of a juggler, balancing a long staff on his chin. Next moment, with a rapid, nameless impulse, in a superb lofty arch, the bright steel spans the foaming distance and quivers in the life spot of the whale. Instead of sparkling water, he now spouts red blood. "That drove the spigot out of him," cries Stubb. "'Tis July's immortal 4th. All fountains must run wine today. Would now or old Orleans whiskey, or old Ohio, or unspeakable old Monongahela. Then, Testigo, lad, I'd have ye hold a cannikin to the jet, and we'd drink round it. Yea, verily, hearts alive, we'd brew choice punch in the spread of this spout hole there, and from that live punch bowl quaff the living stuff." Again and again, to such gamesome talk, the dexterous dart is repeated, the spear returning to its master like a greyhound held in skilful leash. The agonized whale goes into its flurry, the tow line is slackened, and the pitch-poler, dropping astern, folds his hands and mutely watches the monster die. That was a good one. Okay, I think shall we end there? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think we'll end there. That was a good one to end on. Just a short one today, 20 minutes or so, not too long. Good one though, wasn't it? Good few chapters. I enjoyed those. Right, so we'll be back next week, and tonight. Has the Kung Fu Boomerang effect. You'll take the Kung Fu Boomerang effect. What's that? Anyway, yes, tonight I'll be in the phone box doing my quiz. I'll have to write some questions first. One or two might be about Moby Dick, I don't know. Yeah, I'm also thinking I might read it more than once a week instead of just in here. In the Cloud House. I might read it another time somewhere else. We'll see. But that'll do for the moment. I think that'll do for the moment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It'd be nice if you, just you and me, possibly. Well, no, other people coming in, and replay viewers, of course. But anyway, that'll do for this week. So I'll see you next week. And tonight, round them all off, possibly. Or the Whalers did. Or the Fountain of Blood. The Fountain of Blood. All right, thanks for watching. See you later. Bye-bye.